You're listening to the Vikes Verified podcast. Hello and welcome back to episode 75 of the Vikes Verified podcast. I'm Nick, back with Matt in the booth. It was a Christmas Eve crusher for the Minnesota Vikings. They lose 30-24 to the Detroit Lions. We're going to break that down for you and also go over what we have left to play for this season. 2 games left. Can't wait to dive into that and see what kind of opportunities lie ahead. The Vikes Verified podcast is sponsored by Duke Cannon. Hopefully you picked up some Duke Cannon for Christmas. Wide array of products. They really have everything you need. Keep yourself clean. Keep yourself top-tier hygiene. Based right here in Minneapolis. It's a fantastic brand. Fantastic different scents. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't go get some Duke Cannon and support a local brand and a local product.
The Vikes Verified podcast is also sponsored by Unreal. It is gift giving season, and if you're looking for an elite local gift, look no further than Unreal. They have high quality products. I can attest, as I'm rocking some of their gear right now, as always. They have some of the best products on the market. Go check them out on unreal.co and use code PULLTAB15 for 15% off your order.
All right, Matt. We're live from Cubs Studios out here in Stillwater. Going to break down the Detroit game. Nick Mullens ends up leading the NFL this week in passing yards, but also throws 4 interceptions in a loss 30-24 to the Detroit Lions. There was a lot of positives in this game and also, a lot of ugly plays as well. First and foremost, how great was it to see Justin Jefferson back healthy, back making plays, huge touchdown catch right before the half to secure some momentum for us going into the half. Give us a chance there in that second half. He looks like he's back to full form, and he's going to be a problem for the Green Bay Packers this weekend. It's no secret that he is an elevator for this team when he is on the field. How much energy did he bring to this team against Detroit?
So much. It's very good to see him back in purple and back at US Bank Stadium. Scored his first touchdown since returning from injury in electric fashion, really in the corner of the end zone, making a play kind of when nothing was there. Just what we're used to seeing from a guy like Justin Jefferson, and he does elevate himself and everyone around him. You can see the energy that he brings, the passion that he plays with. That catch that he made on that 30-27 was very similar to the Buffalo catch from last year.
What a catch.
Even though we weren't able to capitalize on that drive, that catch should not be overlooked because that was one of the better catches of this whole season. So electric to have him back in the fold. But once again, like you said, this Vikings team did a lot of did some good things, but did a lot of bad things that have really killed us in these last 5 games and has resulted in, a handful of losses for us now. So it's time for us to kind of reevaluate. We've got some big injuries from this game that we'll kind of touch on. We got 2 games left. We're still technically in the race. We're going to need a little bit of help, but still some stuff out to play for. And if you would have asked if we'd be fighting for a playoff spot with everything that happened, I'd be pretty happy. So overall, we just got to kind of adjust with what we have and see what we can do.
Yeah, and we kind of thought, maybe this is the game Ty Chandler gets that huge workload. Obviously, he did get a big workload in Cincinnati, put a really nice game together, 120-plus rushing yards. Ty Chandler finishes this game with a touchdown, but only 8 carries for 17 yards to show for. And it kind of felt like once the Vikings kind of lost the lead after that Jahmyr Gibbs second touchdown and the field goal, we're kind of playing from behind. That's when we really lost the run game. Weren't able to establish it. Alexander Mattison also did not quite look 100% during his repetition when he did get in the game. Maybe could have sat out another week with that ankle injury, but did not quite get the workload we were looking for from the ground game, and that has kind of been the story of the season. Unable to establish a run, and we got to hurt teams through the air. And while we're pretty good at doing that and we have the weapons to do that, it gets a lot harder when you're losing the time of possession nearly every single game. Some key injuries that really hurt the Vikings in this game. Obviously, superstar tight end TJ Hawkinson on pace for a 100-catch, 1,000-yard season, ends up tearing his ACL and MCL on a questionable hit. I think it's more so the anger from Vikings fans that wants it to be a dirty hit, but nonetheless, just really unfortunate for TJ there. We're hoping he can, make strides and be ready for the start of next season. And a low-key contributor that's flying under a lot of people's radar is DJ Wanham and how good he has been for this team this year. I thought he was maybe due for an extension maybe the last few weeks of the season. Still would like to get a deal done with him, but he ends up tearing his quad in this game. I'm almost going to look at that as, it could have been worse at the time of the injury. Everyone thought it was a knee injury. Cart comes out, would have been devastating for 2 torn ACLs. Obviously, a torn quad is no joke of an injury, but rather have a muscle tear than ligament damage for sure for DJ Wanham. And what a good season he put together across from Danielle Hunter. He is going to be missed. Who do you see stepping up, and how do you see them stepping up in these guys' absence?
Yeah, well, very 2 tough losses, like you said. TJ is one of the best tight ends in the league, and DJ Wanham made himself a lot of money in a contract year. So tough to see those guys go down as the hits really keep coming for the Vikings. But in terms of replacing them, I think for Wanham, it starts with a guy in Patrick Jones who did have a very good game.
Best game of the year for sure.
Against the Lions, which is what we're going to have to hopefully see in these last 2 games because he's going to get the majority of those reps. Another guy that's going to be kind of under the radar that's going to get an increased role is going to be Andre Carter. That's the undrafted free agent from Army, has the size, just needs to work more on, I think, the technique and refining some of those skills. But with the loss of Wanham, I think in the last 2 games, you're going to see an increased snap count for a guy like Andre Carter who has that raw side of things and now hopefully gives this a little bit more opportunity to get that playing experience in an NFL game. So I expect those 2 to get more snaps as we continue this season. And then also for a guy like TJ Hawkinson, it's going to be Josh Oliver, who's going to be the first guy out there. I think we're going to see a lot more 2 tight end sets. You're going to see a lot of Johnny Munt and Josh Oliver. I think those 2 are going to be the biggest beneficiaries from the TJ Hawkinson injury. In regards to Hawkinson, I think we're probably looking at, right around in October, potentially November return date, just based on the fact that he tore both his ACL and MCL. Super unfortunate timing. I'm hoping that he can have a little bit quicker recovery, but I think we're looking at probably October. So we're going to have to truly see what we have in Josh Oliver and Johnny Munt because we're most likely going to need these guys to, ball out for us in those first 4 to 6 games while we wait for TJ Hawkinson to get back. And I also think that don't be surprised if the Vikings do potentially draft a receiver tight end to help fill that void, and we might see a guy like Johnny Munt, who might not be re-signed. Just something to keep an eye on with the loss of Hawkinson and his late return.
Yeah, and there's also potential to maybe pick someone up in free agency this offseason. We do have Nick Mullens on the roster as well, who had a couple preseason flashes there. So maybe he can contribute a little bit. Would be nice to see Marcus Davenport step up in the absence of...
Oh, my gosh, what a waste of $10 million.
In the absence of DJ Wanham there, but it's not looking like he's going to see the field the rest of the season. That 21-day window has still not even been opened up from the IR. So you're right. It's going to have to be Andre Carter, and, it'd be nice to maybe have a guy in Luigi Villain at this point. A guy that we really liked this preseason ended up not sticking with the team, but it's proving to test the depth here at the end of the season with the injuries of this team. It has really been something that we can't really remember seeing in multiple years. Looking at the injury report today and then all the guys we've lost to season-ending injuries is truly remarkable. So we'll see what kind of fight we can put together these last 2 games. It was nice to see a bounce-back game from KJ Osborne in this one. Kind of a guy that a lot of people have kind of challenged to step up and rise to that previous role of last season and the year before, where he's a really effective kind of second fiddle to Justin Jefferson. Made a couple big catches in this one. That was great to see. Ends up scoring a touchdown as well. I really like them taking that one-on-one shot on the post route. He elevates, secures that catch. I thought, that's great to see from KJ, and we're going to need a lot of that, more of that in these final 2 games if we're going to produce. The unsung hero we want to touch on is David Quessenberry at right tackle, a guy we've been talking about. There was doubts, he had to play a little bit in the Philadelphia game. He's had a couple spot starts, like you said, this year, but how impressive has Quessenberry been in Brian O'Neill's absence? Yeah,
Quessenberry's been awesome. In his limited action here, when he needs to fill in, he's done more than enough to hold down that tackle position and keep the quarterback upright. So he's a guy that I think has deserved a look at extending for a year or 2 just to keep him as that great quality swing tackle type of player. So hats off to Quessenberry for coming onto this team weeks before the season and being able to be an admirable fill-in for really elite tackles in Darrisaw and O'Neal. So when you have one of those guys out, you expect a lot out of the backup, and he's been able to, withstand that and do what he needs to. So Questenberry's been awesome. I was one last week who had mentioned KJ Osborne, someone who had been kind of disappointing. I had mentioned that I was going to watch him these last 3 games, and what do you know? The next week he goes and has 95 yards and a touchdown. So that is the KJ we're more used to seeing. Good to see him back to his normal ways there. And again, I think, with the loss of Hawkinson, a guy like KJ in these last 2 games is going to be someone who needs to be relied on more. So I think the timing of his, reemergence in this offense couldn't have been better, because we're going to be more looking at a 3-headed beast with our wide receivers in terms of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and KJ Osborne.
Yeah, it's going to be very critical that KJ can produce here in these final 2 games if we're going to have any shot at winning, regardless of who's under center. Now, last week I kind of challenged the defense. Can we get 5 sacks on Jared Goff? Can we get pressure on the quarterback? Can we bring some exotic packages? Only able to secure 1 sack in this game, and it felt like the pressure was really non-existent most of the game, and I think that attributed to Jared Goff being able to move the ball so well. Couldn't get our defense off the field once again. It kind of seems like that first drive of the game where you really want to get that 3 and out, or you only want to allow 1 or 2 first downs. Seems like teams always just drive right down the field on us, and that kind of sets us back in terms of time of possession. It leaves us pressing a little bit, not able to run the football as much. But Detroit was good on 3rd down too, 50%, 6 of 12. So just getting that. The defense has been good in a lot of scenarios this year, but when we really need to get off the field or get that clutch sack, it seems like, a lot of the time we just can't make that happen. And there was a lot of 3rd downs in this game where I'm just thinking, damn, like if we're able to get off the field there, I think we really have a chance to swing the momentum in the game and have our offense piggyback off some of that momentum. I thought Jahmyr Gibbs, I hate to say it, but he's going to be a problem for us for years.
Nice.
That's such a versatile piece over there in Detroit. Catching the ball out of the backfield, you can line him up in the slot. He can carry the ball effectively. He juked Caleb Evans out of his cleats quite literally and sent him to the bench with Jalen Williams coming in to replace him at the end of the game. So it's a good offense in Detroit. I don't want to sell short that offensive line, because that is a heck of a unit, and they really protected Jared, and that is exactly what Jared Goff needs to be successful.
Yeah, hats off to Detroit's O-line. They did a phenomenal job keeping us out of the backfield there and keeping Jared Goff upright. But again, this defense is known for its heavy blitz packages, and when you don't get home, that creates a lot of open gaps in that back end for us. And you kind of can see the weaknesses of where our defense can be exposed on how we kind of play heavier man, and how you'll see in-breaking routes trying to cut in between those zones. And when we can't get to the quarterback, there's some pretty big gaps for quarterbacks to find. So just unfortunate that we weren't able to get our hands on Goff as much as we wanted to. But again, I think this defense, I don't think that there's a lot of bad things to say. I didn't think we had the best performance. I think a guy in a Caleb Evans had maybe his worst game of the season. So I believe he got benched in the 4th quarter. So very tough to see that. But on the flip side, I think a guy in Theo Jackson has been someone who's flown under the radar, who continues to get a decent amount of snaps. And he made a couple big plays, had a big tackle on a 3rd down.
Big 3rd down.
Has been more involved. And you see that Flores has lean towards carrying more safeties than carrying an extra corner because of the flexibility that these safeties offer. So I'm very excited to see what Theo can do throughout this offseason going into next year, but there are going to be some question marks to be answered in terms of a Caleb Evans, Lewis Seen, young guys like Mekhi Blackman. There's a lot of transition in the secondary, and then Harrison Smith, who's a veteran of ours that's future is definitely going to be in question after the season. So a lot of things to be answered on that back end. But overall, if we can keep Brian Flores here, I feel very good about this unit going into next season. But mark my words, he's going to be one of the hottest commodities for a head coaching position. It all comes down to how bad he wants to get out of here or chase a ring with a team that, with a guy like Kirk Cousins, who knows what we can do.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly opportunity for him to stay. We're going to have to open the pocketbook.
And the refs were brutal in that game. We didn't even get to touch that.
Yeah, let's touch on that a little bit. Officiating, would love to see accountability really more than anything. And the one in particular that really frustrated me was the roughing the passer call on Patrick Jones.
That has to be a reviewable call.
On 2nd and 26. That is they're way behind the sticks there. We're going to get that football back. The fact that that's an automatic first down after that penalty just kind of takes the wind out of your sails as a home crowd. And, we've seen it all too many times this season with 5 home losses. I don't want to be the guy that's just, blame the refs. But sometimes it is necessary, and it's the same. It was the same crew that picked up the pass interference flag versus Kansas City at home earlier this year, and just inconsistency. You also let Cam Bynum pick up that fumble and return it all the way to the crib,
and it was a fumble. I don't know how they could overturn that. That's what drives me nuts.
You call that on the field, the stadium explodes, the energy's there, and then you just suck it right out of the stadium by picking that or reviewing that call and overturning it to an incomplete pass. So just accountability. I mean, do you have any ideas on how that, obviously refs are graded on their performance, but what do you think the steps should be for inconsistent reffing like we've been seeing this season? It's all over the league, really.
Well, for the people who say the NFL is scripted, that felt like the most scripted officiated game of the season. Now, in terms of inconsistency, a lot of it should be that these 15-yard penalties need to be reviewable. These roughing the passers, you make pass interference, that's a reviewable call now, so why not? Why can't roughing the passer be? They not only missed, so they called a weak roughing the passer. They called the touchdown back that to most people looked like a fumble in my eyes, and they called it a fumble initially, so to overturn that is insane. And then you miss a face mask call that Jamison Williams grabs the defender's face mask, and Jamison Williams also stepped out of bounds and touched the ball first. None of it was called. I just think that that's where these refs need to have grades and need to have a little bit more access to reviewing calls, because that roughing the passer, I know they're trying to protect the quarterback, but this year I guarantee you it's going to be one of the main points of emphasis at those owner meetings is making those calls, specifically roughing the passers, reviewable, because there have been numerous roughing the passer calls that are just egregious. They're not even close to it. They're turning this game into something that it's not. It's becoming softer than it needs to be. I understand player safety, but there are some things that players can't control and their emotion when they're making a play. So I think that the league needs to take kind of a perspective look at this and try to find a way to make this reviewable, because those are such critical calls. 15 yards, that was a game-changing call, and so was the touchdown that was called back. So that's just unfortunate.
Yeah, and I feel your pain. I think Vikings fans all over feel your pain watching that. I mean, it is ridiculous, and I think the most ridiculous one to me was the illegal touching. I mean, they show it on the scoreboard, Jamison Williams, whole foot out of bounds, and then comes back and catches the ball. I mean, that's elementary as an official. That's day one stuff, as they say. So would like to see some accountability. I don't know how that works or what the system is there, but maybe it needs to be a little more cutthroat. You make mistakes like that, you're done. You had your shot in the league. Maybe these guys don't get second, third, fourth opportunities. But that's not our decision to make, but it's certainly frustrating to see as a fan. I want to move forward here, Matt, a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the quarterback conversation. Jaren Hall and Nick Mullens seem to be the two guys that are eligible to play on New Year's Eve versus the Packers. It doesn't look like it's going to be Josh Dobbs. He'll probably be the emergency third again.
Yep.
So Nick Mullens, I'm going to start with him, and obviously interceptions have been the story of his starting tenure, and he's thrown 6 in his last 2 starts. But Nick Mullens, I want to give him a little bit of credit. He's a guy that is not afraid to push the football downfield, and he's a guy that throws it 15 to 20 plus yards downfield as often or maybe more than Kirk Cousins even did. So he's a gunslinger. He's going to throw it. Maybe a little bit wobbly at times. Couple really tough interceptions there downfield, but he's not scared. And it seemed like there was moments where Dobbs was maybe a little bit gun shy, a little bit scared to pull the trigger downfield on some of those throws. So I appreciate Nick for at least pushing the ball downfield and giving our receivers opportunities to make plays. Now, Jaren Hall, on the other hand, we have minimal film on him. He had a couple drives in Atlanta. If you had to go with your gut instinct, today at TCO, they're both taking snaps from Garrett Bradbury. A starter has not been named yet. In your opinion, who gets the start on New Year's Eve?
I'm leaning Jaren Hall, and I think a great point is that they have a little bit less tape on him. That's going to create a little bit more of a disguise for this offense going into that Sunday Night Football game. But again, we've seen what Nick Mullens can do. Hats off to him for being able to, chase some of those downfield passes, be a little bit more aggressive. But we've also seen both sides of the coin there, right? We've seen some fun plays downfield, but we've also seen a 4-interception game that could have been 5 or 6 had the Detroit Lions not dropped a couple easy ones. So, again, I like the aggressiveness that Mullens can play with, but also we've been hurt by that, and that kills us in the time possession and turnover battle, which are two things that have really killed us this season. So I would lean in a guy in Jaren Hall. Hall. I think that this team needs to see what they have in him. Obviously, we're still in playoff contention. We're going to need some help. But you drafted this guy. You need to know what you have in him. Whether or not we make the playoffs, you need to understand if Jaren Hall is going to be a part of the plans next season or if you need to really elevate drafting a quarterback in this year's class. So to me, and then you have a guy like Justin Jefferson in a press conference today who kind of uplifted Jaren, saying he could be a guy that could spark this offense. I think just hearing that out of JJ's mouth should mean something as well. So I'm going to lean Jaren Hall to get this start. We need to see what we have in the rookie QB out of BYU, see what he can do against the Packers and Lions division rivals. And at the end of the day, we'll see how it all shakes out, but at least you know what you have with your rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and I'm rocking with Jaren Hall as well. I think that's the right call. So I'm going to lay down a stat for you. Kevin O'Connell, in his tenure with the Minnesota Vikings, since he was hired, turnover differential of 0 or better in games. He's 17-0, hasn't lost a single game. If his turnover differential is -1 or worse, and we lose the turnover battle, he is 3-12. So I think the decision just comes down to who is least likely to turn the football over. Because when we win the turnover battle or it's even, we haven't lost a game with Kevin O'Connell. So you had two guys out there, Nick Mullens and Josh Dobbs. They both proved that they turn the football over. It's time to turn to the third guy and see if he doesn't turn the football over as much, because that is a winning formula for this team. And if we can win that battle, that's going to be the way we go 2-0 to finish this season.
Yeah, I think, for us, it's all about limiting those turnovers, right? And the time of possession, like I'd mentioned. Those are two things that have just really plagued us throughout this whole season. Team hasn't been able to win in those categories, and we saw it on Sunday. The Detroit Lions, it started early. They got that ball, and I thought it was interesting that they decided to receive. I think Dan Campbell wanted to make a statement, and he did just that. They had about an 8-minute drive where they scored. That really sets the tone, especially on the road. So this team, I think, throughout these last two games, that needs to be a huge emphasis on trying to win those battles. But to me, this season has been, in our next discussion here is this one of the unluckiest seasons that we've witnessed as a Vikings fan? I mean, the hits have just been countless. It seems as though each week we have something going on, and you just wonder if you had a guy like Kirk Cousins, what this team could look like. And now you lose TJ Hawkinson and DJ Wanham. Davenport hasn't played. Hicks compartment syndrome. JJ's injury in the middle of the season. I mean, it just seemed like one thing after the next. And this has been one of the crazier seasons I've watched as a Vikings fan, and I would like to hear your thoughts.
I'm right there with you, Matt. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that we were in Lambeau Field on Halloween weekend thinking that we were going to hoist the Lombardi. In early February here, things were firing on all cylinders. We were pretty healthy for the most part. Still had Cam Akers, still had Kirk Cousins, still had TJ Hawkinson. But that's the game of football, right? It's probably the most, there's the most injury risk out of all major sports, I would say. And we've happened to catch the bug at the wrong time this season. We didn't want to believe it, but, setting a record for one-score wins the previous season was maybe a recipe for a little bit of regression the next season. And that's exactly what we're seeing. 6-8 now in one-score games. It's just kind of coming back down to earth, right? We were on such a we can't lose, we're going to win every one-score game, to now realizing what the other end of that stick is like. But, yeah, it has been a very tough season to watch. It just makes it even tougher when you look at the future and who we have to extend, who we potentially should be drafting this offseason. There's tons of question marks. But I think for this team to maintain its culture and maintain its vision, you have to go out and compete these last two games, regardless of who's on the football field, who's on the injury report, who's on the IR. It's going to come down to, we have guys in this locker room that are going to step up. It's next man up mentality. And you got to come out and compete against division opponents. It's a tone-setting thing. It's a culture-preserving thing. So regardless of, people say, we could lose these last two and get a top 10 draft pick. That's never how ownership or a coaching staff should be thinking. And it's certainly, easier to think that way as fans. So I think 2 rivalry games in the season, let's give it the best we got. You want to get into Green Bay a little bit? Let's preview them.
Yeah.
The headline for Green Bay today is the suspension of Jaire Alexander. I want to hear your thoughts on that situation. and what you make of Jair Alexander's antics.
I mean, Jair is one of the biggest clowns in the league, and that's even outside of the bias that I have towards the Packers and the hatred. But this guy seems like one of the most ego-filled players in the league. If you guys get a chance to watch the interview on why he did go out for the coin toss, it will open up your eyes as to who he is as a person, as just as much as the player, right? He's an elite player, no denying that. He's a very good corner, but I think his personality and kind of that side of things really takes away from him. He decided to go out for a coin toss without telling the coach or team because he's from Charlotte, quote unquote, and that was the reason that he went out there. Not only did he go out there unannounced, he almost botched the coin toss by saying that they wanted to kick, which mainly would have given away their ability to receive the ball on the second half.
Both halves.
So, again, a guy like Jair, and I wish he wasn't suspended, because you know what I would have loved to seen is J.J. Cook Jair at home at U.S. Bank Stadium on primetime football. Jair's probably happy that he's not playing because he would have been on an island out there, and I think JJ would have exposed him as Addison did week 8.
He would have been in
trouble. So
again,
Jair, tough for the Packers. It seems like a little bit of institutional chaos there. It seems like the coach wasn't aware of what's going on. Jair's doing what he wants. There's not a real connection there. So I think there may be some things going on in that locker room that they need to square away. And don't even get me started on Joe Barry, because that defense is Swiss cheese. Joe Barry is cooked. The Green Bay Packers have given up an average of 29.3 points over the last 3 games. And some of those games have been against Carolina Panthers, New York Giants, some of the low-level teams in the league. This defense seems to be a mess right now, and no better time for this Vikings offense to go put another big number up on them on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, and Green Bay's calling for Joe Barry's head, right? Tommy DeVito, NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Baker Mayfield comes into Lambeau Field, posts a perfect passer rating for the first time ever as an opposing quarterback. Only other person to do that, Aaron Rodgers in 2019. Shocking what we've seen from Green Bay's defense, and it's even more shocking that he's still in the building to this point. So why not take advantage of it as the Minnesota Vikings? Find ways to expose him. He's dropping Preston Smith and other edge rushers in coverage. Find ways to beat these guys, and I'm sure Kevin O'Connell is going to have a good game plan put together for this game. But one thing rings true in this matchup is that Jordan Love is a different quarterback than last time we saw him in October. He really turned things around. Started to get that message from the ownership, put a little bit of pressure on him, I think, saying, we don't know if he's the guy yet. Once those rumors started circulating in the media, Jordan Love started turning up, started putting together good performance after good performance. The guy has a ton of arm talent. I respect him as a player. I think his one downfall is he makes off-balance throws that can be inaccurate in clutch situations. I think getting turnovers or getting off the field when he does make those mistakes is going to be critical in this game. But if you let him get in a rhythm and start operating, he is about as good as it gets throwing the intermediate 20 to 35-yard pass downfield. He's got some weapons. Christian Watson is going to be questionable for this game, as well as Jaden Reed. They're 2 top threats on the perimeter, and they are different when Watson is in the lineup. We've seen it all season. What worries you the most about this Packers offense, and what players do you look at to try and neutralize to get a win in this one?
I think it starts with the D-line, and that's going to be tough with the loss of Wanham there, but we need to find a way to get after Jordan Love and make him uncomfortable in the pocket, because, again, if he's a guy that can sit back there, kind of dissect the defense, he's got the arm strength to make those intermediate to long throws, and, expose some of these defensive areas with the way that we play and how aggressive that we're getting after the quarterback with these blitz packages. So to me, it's about finding ways to keep him moving in the pocket. You want to make him so he's not really set a whole lot of the time, and have him really feel like he's on his heels the whole game, because we're after him. So I'm expecting a big game out of Danielle Hunter at home. He's going to be fired up. We're going to need guys like Harrison Phillips, Patrick Jones, and potentially Andre Carter to help really fill that void there with the loss of DJ Wanham. But again, it's about really keeping him off balance there and forcing them to have to make plays, a little bit outside the pocket maybe, or unplanned, you could say, because I think a big X factor in this game is going to be Aaron Jones. He's been someone that's been injured. I don't know if he's going to be in for Sunday or not, but I do think that if he is, that adds an extra element to that offense that's going to make it even more difficult to stop. I do think being at home helps, but that would be the main difference for me.
100%. Aaron Jones is kind of the motor, the machine that gives that offense explosiveness. If they're able to get some explosive plays on the ground with him, it seems like the offense just clicks at a way higher rate. This is Jordan Love's first start in US Bank Stadium, so it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that atmosphere. Obviously a primetime game with a ton of eyes on it. Playoff implications, if we're able to win both here down the stretch and we get a loss from either the Seahawks or the Rams, we still have a chance to get in the playoffs. Do we think that this roster can make noise in the playoffs with our current injury state? Probably not, but it'd be fun to ride a little Jaren Hall magic into the playoffs if he goes out and wins 2 games in a row. I'm sure no Vikings fan could deny that, but it starts with a New Year's Eve game. And I really think that if A.J. Dillon's the starting back, Aaron Jones is out of the lineup, we get either Dontavian Wicks or Jaden Reed out of the lineup, both questionable. I really like our chances to kind of slow down this Green Bay offense. If they're all out there, I don't think we have I don't think it's an impossible task for us to stop, but when they have all their weapons healthy, they certainly are a different team. And this offensive line is actually starting to protect Jordan Love a lot better the second half of the season. So we know how it goes in these division games. I would almost put my life on it right now that it's going to be a one-score game because that's all that the Minnesota Vikings play is one-score games. So we're used to that by now. It's can we make that play in the fourth quarter that's going to put us over the edge at home? And I would really like for it to be Jaren Hall making that play.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we still have a path to the playoffs. Whether or not we can make noise in the playoffs, it starts with this game on New Year's Eve. We're playing the Packers. I know we can talk about draft position, trying to set things up maybe for, maybe if we lose and we're out of the playoffs. Regardless, it's the Green Bay Packers. Whenever we play the Green Bay Packers, I want to beat them, whether we are out of the playoffs, still have a chance at the playoffs. I don't care what the scenario is. If we can beat the Green Bay Packers, that's a small win in my book.
Yeah.
So that's all I care about on Sunday night.
To my new year.
Is kicking the Packers' ass because at the end of the day, we hate each other. We're not fans of each other. No one wants to lose that game. So let's be on the winning side. One game in the draft order. It's not moving the needle for me.
No, it's not. Absolutely. And back to my previous point is that it's a culture maintaining thing, and that's an expectation from ownership and the coaching staff. Regardless of our circumstances, we're still going to come out and compete, try to win games regardless of the opponent. Let's get a little bit into our keys to the game and predictions. But first and foremost, the Vikes Verified podcast is also sponsored by Chill Boys. Hopefully you picked up some Chill Boys for Christmas. If not, you go to chillboys.com, pick up some bamboo boxers. They've got a lot of different promos going on right now. They're going to be some of the most comfortable boxers you will wear. Keeps them cool all day, regardless of summer or winter. You're going to want to get a few pair of these things and check them out. They've also got a purple colorway right now that is,
yes, sir.
It is elite for Vikings fans. It is an absolute necessity. Check them out at chillboys.com.
The Vikes Verified podcast is also sponsored by Jimmy's Dressing, another locally made product. You can find this at your local Cub store. If you're looking to spice up your dressing or lettuce game, go check out Jimmy's Dressing. They've got some awesome products, a wide amount of different selections for you for dressing. So check them out at your local Cub and go support a Minnesota-made company.
All right, Matt, I'm going to get into my first key to this game, and that is going to be getting off the field on third down. I've kind of harped on it the last few games. I want a less than 30% conversion rate on third down from the Green Bay Packers on New Year's Eve. Capitalizing on those very loud moments in US Bank Stadium on third downs and maintaining that momentum, allowing it to roll over to the offense, I think is going to be critical. So we'll go with less than 30% on third down for the Green Bay Packers.
Okay, my first one is going to be Justin Jefferson, 100-plus receiving yards and a touchdown. This is going to be a game that we need to rely on Justin Jefferson. He's going to want to put up big numbers on Primetime TV. Let's make that happen. They don't have Jair Alexander. No better opportunity than to get JJ going on Sunday Night Football.
Love it. My second is going to be very simple, 100-plus yards on the ground from the entire team. I don't care who does it. I would like Ty Chandler to get 100-plus of those yards in my fantasy championship this week. That would be a blessing. But regardless of who it is, it could be Kene Nwangwu, could be C.J. Ham, could be Alexander Madison. I want to see 100-plus team rushing yards and established time of possession in this game.
And next one for me is 3+ sacks on Jordan Love. I mentioned this in a way that we need to, keep him on his heels, get after the quarterback. It starts with this defensive line. We need to find a way to get 3+ sacks on Jordan and keep him on that field so that we can really knock him down and get after him there. So it starts on the defensive line, but let's go get 3.
My third is going to be taking advantage of play action. This kind of goes hand in hand with my second key to the game in running the football. We've seen so much success on play action crossers, play action wheel routes against the Green Bay Packers in the last few seasons. I don't know if Jordan Addison's going to play in this one, but KJ Osborne is still very capable to run those play action intermediate crossers 15 to 20 yards downfield. Him and Justin Jefferson should have a field day on this secondary, and look for us to establish a run early and really take the top off as the game goes on.
Yes, sir. My final key to the game is going to be the time of possession. This has been one of the biggest issues for us all season. Last week, we didn't win in it. In most games that we've lost, we have been losing in it big time. It's time for us to change that narrative. Let's find a way to sustain drives, build that time of possession, and keep that defense off the field so they can stay fresh.
100%, Matt. We're going to switch things up a little bit. It seemed like when we were betting against the Vikings, we were actually winning games. So score prediction for me, it's going to be a little bit of a New Year's Eve voodoo here. This is a first-time prediction for me. I'm predicting a 21-21 OT tie for Vikings Packers on New Year's Eve. Could you imagine?
You heard it here first.
Could you imagine the fans walking out of that stadium to a tie? It's most likely not going to happen. It's a 99% chance it doesn't happen, but I got to shake things up here in the booth with my predictions because they have not been working the last 3 weeks.
All right, I like it. I'm going to spin zone mine too. I've been picking the Vikings lately, and earlier in the season I was picking against them, and we went on this winning streak, and we were starting to put together wins and really starting to find a stride. All of a sudden I start picking them. They start losing. It could all be head games, but regardless, I'm going back to what worked. I'm going to say that the Vikings lose by a final score of 24-21. It's the Vikings. It's going to somehow be a one-score game, and if it's going to be tragic, it's probably a walk-off field goal. Yeah. So I'm going to say Vikings lose 24-21. Let's hope that I'm wrong, though, because F the Packers.
Yeah, and a walk-off field goal from Daniel Carlson's brother. Wouldn't that be shocking for Vikings fans as well? But, yeah, this is what's going to work for us, I think. This is the winning formula this week, is betting against the Vikings, so that's exactly what we're going to do. We still have a lot to play for this season. 2 games. We need a little bit of help in the NFC. We're currently not in a playoff spot, but there is plenty of opportunity for us to still make the postseason. Now, like I said, do I think that this is a team that can go on a run? Unless we see some remarkable play from Jaren Hall, I'm going to go ahead and say no. We're probably not going to make a run, but wouldn't it be nice to get into that first round as Vikings fans, gather around family and friends for a playoff game? I think that's what everyone wants. So let's see what we can do this week against the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be a one-score game. Starts this week. See if we can find our way in the postseason, Matt.
Yeah, again, let's put everything in the future behind us. Detroit, off-season, playoffs, any of that talk. Let's put that to bed for right now. Let's focus. Primetime game at US Bank Stadium. It is the border battle. It is the last home game of the season. We need to have that place energized. We still got a shot at the playoffs, but again, it starts on Sunday night. Let's see what this team can do finishing out the season. I'm confident that we're going to put a good product of football out on that field on primetime. So time to show out, time for the fans to get loud, and let's finish this season proud.
Yeah, and my final note is going to be: do not sell your tickets to a Green Bay Packers
Don't be
fan.
That guy.
If you have tickets, you're thinking maybe I'm not going to go to the game, you make sure that you're selling those to Vikings fans, because we need more purple in the building. We need at least a sound advantage in there, because their roster probably is a little bit better than ours considering our injury situation. So let's not sell that to Green Bay. Let's go out, give our best effort, see what we can do, and cheer for Jaren Hall as he leads us to a victory on New Year's Eve. Let's start this year fresh. Let's start this year 1-0. Why not?
Let's go. Start the year off right.
This is the Vikes Verified Podcast, episode 75. Thank you for tuning in, as always, through the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL.
You're listening to the Vikes Verified Podcast.